Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Scott Luton and Gregory S. White with you here on Supply Chain Now. Welcome to today's live stream. Greg, how are we doing today?
Just cashing out here in my private podcast studio on new couch. No, just yeah. Sorry.
No?
I like this
Well,
look, right? I mean, this makes us look like those guys that just sit around and yap about what is supply chain anyway, right? I want to be one
well,
of those guys.
the shirt looks good. Is that a new shirt? I like
It's
it.
not totally new, but yeah, I've probably had it for a few months. Yeah, thank you. It's a golf shirt, but you know what I like about it, Scott? Not that anyone showed up for a fashion show here, but the shirt has probably been washed 10 times. And look at how upright the collar stays.
I like it.
I don't know why. I don't usually wear collars, but when I do, they're good ones.
All right, more on fashion at 11.
Right.
So today, folks, it is, as always, the ever reliable The Supply Chain Buzz live show that comes at you every Monday at 12 noon Eastern time, where Greg and I, and a lot of times friends, guests, even family members, as I can tell, we're going to be discussing a variety of news and developments really across global business. We want to hear from you, so give us your take in the comments throughout the show. And Greg, if folks are listening to the podcast replay, they should come check us out live on the social media platform of their choosing sometime soon, huh?
Yes. I don't know why live, but yes.
Well,
Do it on YouTube. I mean, the nice thing is you can see the live version. You can count on it to run. I know we have a lot of friends on LinkedIn watching us through LinkedIn, but YouTube runs and it just works. And then you can always watch the recorded version as well.
right.
We are really digging into some statistics that are very confusing about how people are consuming podcasts these days, but more and more seem to consume them on YouTube.
Okay. Man, we're going to dive into the
We need to have
all.
Catherine on the show one time to talk through those statistics, because every time she tells me about them, I'm not less confused.
Right. Well, folks like Andre. Andre's back with us. He's been with us several times. He prefers YouTube.
Yep.
Elias says, "Hey, watching from Nigeria, Greg. That's a nice looking shirt."
Thank you.
Great
I
to see you.
appreciate that.
I've mentioned family members. Leah Luton, my mom,
There she
tuned
is. Hi,
in
Mom.
from Aiken via LinkedIn. Great to see you. And Narendra from India is with us
Thank the
also.
Lord.
That's
Yeah.
right. Well, welcome everybody. And well, here, Kyle asked a great question, and maybe we'll get some input from the team. Kyle, I hope this finds you well over there on the West Coast. It's been a long time. He says, curious, do you respond to YouTube comments?
Oh boy, that sounds like a setup question. What have you asked us, Kyle? I don't. Honestly, I don't know how, but we shouldn't
Yes.
we?
And
There's something for Catherine also. She'll make sure that you get heard and that we respond.
That's right. So, Kyle, great question, and we'll
Boy,
accept
am I
the
going to be in trouble
challenge.
with Catherine?
We will accept the challenge, Kyle. So
Yeah.
y'all drop, if you're on YouTube, you drop questions. We're going to get back to you on that. And Ritesh also agrees. That is a cool shirt. It's going to be a cool shirt Greg Day. All right. So, folks, we got a lot to get to here today. So welcome, everybody. Before we get started, I think we got 4 stories we're working through here today. And we want to offer up some resources. And particularly, Greg, if I can get my graphics pulled up. They froze a couple of times. It's maybe made me a little bit gun shy, but we got them here. All right, we got them here. So with that said, we dropped over the weekend, Greg, and we really focused it around, we had talked about last week on social, our ongoing commitment to support our veteran community, right, in a variety of different ways, but especially via our pro bono Veteran Voices programming, which is in its 5th season. And Greg, as you know, and you may have seen some of it, we got a lot of feedback on that Friday morning social post. So we used some of that feedback to offer up and answer questions, because one of the questions we got is, how can we do more, right? How can we do more to better support the veteran community in business or transition, or you name it? So that was the main thrust of our With That Said over the weekend, Greg. And what was
how to do more? Yeah.
What's that?
How to do more?
Right. That's right. What is we've talked about it here before, Greg. when we first met, and so y'all check it out. We also have the link in the chat to check out. With that said, we've got over 23,000 subscribers now. So y'all come join the party. Greg, speaking of how to support veterans, if you remember when we first met, or early when we first met, before we were knocking out a lot of these shows together, we were at a big logistics event here in Georgia, right? And we wanted to bring in a bunch of veterans so they can make network connections and help their transition and stuff. And we did all that. You were an early supporter. You wrote that check, you and many of our other friends. And we got over 100 veterans out to this logistics summit. And better yet, better than the networking, Greg, if you remember, some of these veterans got job offers on the spot. How cool was that, Greg?
Right. Well, I think another company that I was associated with at the time in PSG was actually hiring at the show, which was really cool. Yeah, that was great to see, man. That's a difficult transition. Well, when I say Scott, I mean you, Scott Luton, former Air Force, So it can be a difficult transition because you're trained in such specific things in the military, and you're trained in such a specific way that sometimes the free-flowing nature of civilian business is not a natural for you, right? And the wide-ranging view that you have or have to have of your job, rather than the very focused on this thing view that you have to have in the military, can be a difficult transition for folks. So we've just spent pretty much every year since that helping veterans to assimilate into the wild life of civilian jobs.
That's right. That's right. And so from that personal experience, on both sides of the coin, so to speak, we offered some expertise and some ideas, some practical ideas for how folks can better support the veteran industry from a transition standpoint, from a already established standpoint. Because you got a lot of veteran-owned businesses, lots of ideas. So check that out. We dropped the link in there, and let us know what you think. And hey, if y'all come across something really cool that companies are doing for the veteran community, hey, share. We'd love to blatantly steal that idea. No, we'd like to take it and celebrate it and amplify it, and maybe challenge other organizations to do it. Greg, your final word. Do it. That's right. Do it. Don't talk about it. Find a way to do it. All right. One other resource. Hey, join us tomorrow morning, special time, 8 a.m. Eastern time. We've got, we're partnering with a great friend of the show, Korai Koze, who knows, he may make an appearance later today on the Buzz. Maybe he usually drops in. Yeah. He drops in a lot and makes comments.
Oh, you mean in the audience? I thought you meant like actually on the show.
No. Hey, Greg, we try to, no surprises around here. No surprises. Hey, but join us tomorrow for our webinar, The Ultimate Guide to Holistic Risk Management. And holistic is the key phrase there. Check it out. It's free to attend, but you gotta register. Greg, should be a great session, huh?
Supply chain is not a cost-saving exercise. It is a risk-balancing exercise. Yes.
Bang.
It's all about risk. Cost is a risk, right? Speed is a risk. Reliability is a risk. Ethics are risks.
That's right.
So, yeah. Listen up.
Listen up. Take part. All right. A couple of comments. Gino is back with us from North Alabama. Great to see you, Gino. Yeah. Looking forward to your take here today. Andre says, I watched the movie Path to War just last night. Vets have a hard time integrating during any era, I think is what he meant to say there. Andre, great point. I haven't seen that movie. Have you seen that movie, Greg?
I haven't, but I've been wanting to. Yeah. Oh, well. Epic is just a longer amount of time, or is it shorter?
I don't have to look it up. I haven't used the word epic.
I just read an article about that.
Really?
Yeah, because in 1952 they named a new epoch, I guess is how you say it. And it has to do with some lake in Canada. So anyway.
Oh, that's a great point. I missed. It's not epic as an EPIC. It's epoch. To your point. Right. Okay. Good stuff there. Great word, Andre. Let's see here. I want to go back. Kyle says future feature on the Q&A session via YouTube. Great point, Kyle. So stay tuned on that. And of course, T Squared. is back with
Also
us,
bringing it, in from YouTube.
right? Bring on the nourishment as Greg loves. And he says it's not a nice to have, it's a must have. Well, hey,
Yeah.
we better get down to work then, Greg. We got a lot to get through here today. Are you ready to do it?
Yeah. Well, can we just talk? Can we acknowledge a few weird things that happened? I mean,
Please.
Scott, we have to talk about it. Have to. One of the Chiefs players is dating the most famous person on the planet,
Right.
which was frankly, it was like I went to a Taylor Swift event and a football game broke out. The U.S. got routed in the
Oh,
Ryder Cup by
oh,
rest of world. Congratulations, rest of world. I mean, routed.
yes.
And just, all kinds of weird. Oh, well, so the U.S. government didn't shut down and the writer's strike is over, right? So it's like, I don't know. So many things were brought to conclusion over this weekend, except for Travis Kelsey's relationship, which I fear will happen at the worst time. But,
Mm,
but
mm.
yeah, I was thinking about that this morning, Scott. How many things kind of came to conclusion this
That's
weekend?
great. That's a great call out. I watched some of that. We're gonna have to say that golf was a tragedy as it unfolded. Talk about finality. We had a finale just about on the first day of the
Yes,
Ryder Cup this year.
they never.
Um,
So they lost by five games, and by the end of game day one, they were down by 5 games, six and a
ooh,
half to 1.5.
it was
About
ugly.
right. Yeah.
All right, but hey, we are going to celebrate the end of the writer strike. That's a lot of folks that impacted a lot of people, especially sure, a lot of folks talk about all the big money that's tied up there, but there's a lot of folks that work day to day, paycheck to paycheck. So hopefully we can get past that, and hey, from a selfish standpoint, perhaps get more good content out there, put everybody to work, and enjoy the stories to come. All right, so Greg, speaking
Mhm.
of great segue. Speaking of strikes, while the Hollywood strike apparently is over with, one other big strike continues. So, diving into the first story here today, we're going to be talking about the ongoing labor strikes in the automotive sector. Now, as reported by our friends over at CNN Business, Greg, heavy duty and medium duty truck maker Mack Truck. Well, the good news there is they've averted a labor strike, as it seems. They've reached a tentative labor deal with about 3,900 employees that are part of the United Auto Workers, a UAW union. All the details have not been released just yet, but of course, this deal with Mack Truck was made as another 25,000 UAW members are on strike at Ford, Stellantis, and General Motors. The
Right.
strike at the Big Three, Greg, was expanded last Friday once again because it was been expanded a couple times the last few weeks. As on Friday, 2 more assembly plants were added. Now, side note here, the UAW's strike fund was at $825 million in early September prior to the Big Three strikes. It's estimated that it costs that fund about $14 million a week in strike benefits, small checks that go out to all the affected workers, right? So by averting a strike with Mack Truck, it averted an additional drain on that big fund. So, Greg, I am looking forward to getting your thoughts on as we get past one strike and it looks like we get past another more related strike. We still got a big one going on.
Yeah, this is one of those things that I was thinking about this weekend. Is American workers are already arguably, maybe inarguably, the highest paid automotive workers on the planet,
Mm,
which is why so much of our parts production and all those sorts of things have gone offshore, and why we had to adapt our definition of an American car to include a lesser number of parts made or sourced in the United States or North America, right?
mm,
Mexico, Canada, or US. So, uh, I was talking about this earlier. When times are good, everybody wants a piece, but when business is down, nobody wants to give back, and it's going to become quickly an untenable situation, which we're going to talk about one of the potential solutions in the next story that we discuss. But the inevitability of robotics, AI, things like that replacing human beings at a 36%, I think is what the current request is. Wage
mm.
increase. Is that right, Scott?
Yeah.
All right. I want everybody to just take a quick pause, think about what you make today, and think about how likely it is that your employer could afford to give everyone who works for your company a 36% wage increase. I mean, it's not realistic. It's not sustainable, not long-lasting sustainable, right? I mean, these automakers will be forced to use more and more robotics. And then, what will these people do for money? Because I mean, I've lived in Detroit. I know what happens to an auto worker when they're put out of work, because no one in any industry, if there even is any industry in Detroit, but no one in any industry around the world pays as much as the automotive industry does. So those people get a heavy dose of reality whenever they get out of that industry. So I think it's an interesting challenge. The imprudence of our administration in taking a side here is, I don't know, utterly disdainful. I don't know what else to say. And I think, irresponsible. So I'm really, really concerned about these auto workers. On the other hand, as we've talked about for a few years now, younger generations are, they're staying away from manufacturing jobs in droves, so they're going to be automated anyway. I think this might be a last gasp effort by the remaining baby boomer auto workers to get a big pile of money before they go into retirement. Maybe, I don't know, but the dynamics of it are not complex. They're very simple. We have reached a threshold whereat the auto companies have to do something besides employ unions.
That's so. I'm going to get to Kyle has a comment. I'm going to get to in just a second. I want to circle back to some things you're saying there, Greg, as Nikhil was asking about the future of supply chain management, and Greg touched on a lot of that. And I think our fourth story is going to touch on more of that. Automation, AI. It's amazing. I tell you what, we've been talking about AI for years now, Greg, of course. But goodness gracious, it is blown up to a whole new level, and and rightly so, because with results, with outcomes, with really practical application, as we're seeing out across industry. All right, so. Andre makes a great point. We may need a Lee Iacocca to turn things around. It's a great story there. All right, so Kyle says, great points, but hard to sell when these C-suite and companies are making the highest profits of all time. Greg, any thought there?
Yeah, we all know that's because of the flood of capital from the government into the U.S. economy, and people are buying things that they wouldn't ordinarily buy at prices they wouldn't ordinarily pay. In fact, we're going to talk about the economic state of America, and that's not sustainable either, right? So now is a little too late to ask for compensation around that. And I can't really justify the amount that C-suite executives are paid.
Yeah.
I feel like if their compensation is tied effectively to the status of the company, and it's often tied to the share price of the company, that's where they make most of their money. So if you're a UAW member and you want to really invest in your business, buy stock, because that's what the CEOs do. So, or include stock in your compensation, because that's what the CEOs do. They get paid for the impact that they have on the business, not for the hours that they put into the work. And they take a risk by doing that.
Yeah.
Right? What the UAW wants to do is not take a risk and only benefit when times are good and not pay when times are bad. So that's a common situation. So I have little empathy for either side in this, frankly.
Folks,
nobody wants to talk about the times when GM lost billions and billions and billions of dollars, which wasn't that long ago. And They didn't ask the workers or force the workers to take a pay cut like their CEO did.
Folks, check out the link. Don't take me or Greg's word for it. Check it out, this latest story from CNN Business or where else you get your news from, and let us know what you think on the ongoing year of the workforce is kind of what we heard. I think it was Mike Griswold from Gartner that may have coined that first with us.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right.
But we're going to steal it because it's so true. So
because we can.
Yeah, that's right. That is right. Because I want to shift gears over to an industry maybe that we don't talk about enough here, Although, Greg, we've had that ongoing healthcare supply chain leadership series, which has been really popular. So I want to talk about this. When we talk about the year of the workforce as it applies to healthcare. So Kaiser Permanente, one of the biggest healthcare providers in the U.S., well, that's not immune to the ongoing turmoil across the workforce market. Some 75,000, Greg, healthcare workers across 5 states, plus Washington, D.C., are set to walk off their jobs this Wednesday if Kaiser Permanente cannot reach a deal with a handful of representative labor unions. The strike is planned to last just 3 days, and it would be the biggest single strike in U.S. healthcare history. So while the automotive industry strikes perhaps get more headlines, the labor issues in the healthcare industry certainly have been widespread. In fact, I didn't know this, Greg. Since the beginning of 2022, a third of all labor strikes involving more than 1,000 workers have been in the healthcare industry. Kaiser Permanente, try to say that even once fast.
Right.
Kaiser Permanente, in acknowledging the issues, stated that more than 5 million healthcare workers left the industry in 2021 and 2022. And the company also says that up to 2/3 of current healthcare staff, well, they say they are burnt out. Now, of course, these healthcare industry issues will certainly further complicate the ongoing workforce challenges we have across the global supply chain industry. Greg, especially in these 5 states plus DC. Greg, your thoughts here on what is set to transpire with Kaiser Permanente?
Do you know what their primary complaint is?
Which one?
There aren't enough workers.
Mm.
So don't you love the irony of 75,000 people going on strike because there aren't enough workers? And why aren't there enough workers? Because in 2021 and 2022, more than 5 million healthcare workers feared for their safety largely, and left the workforce never to return. So not unlike the Great Resignation of that time period overall, so many people left the workforce that now we're left with fewer and less experienced, and inarguably, in my experience, which I'll talk about in a second, inarguably less capable people in the industry. My dad spent 24 of 31 days in the hospital recently, and the level of care that he was getting was frightening. I mean, it was absolutely frightening, the ineptitude that he's a diabetic heart patient and was supposed to have a very specific diet. And they talk about the people, in the kitchen who have to make sure that this happened. 7 out of 10 meals were incorrectly prepared for a diabetic patient. So it's a real problem. I'm not sure that striking is the answer, but if that's what it takes to get these companies to do it. But the fact is, there aren't more healthcare workers to take these jobs. We have to wait for people to get out of school. And nursing classes are so small that at an individual university, a class may only have 5 to 8 openings for nurses, right? And the schooling is so long for doctors, obviously, 7 to 10 years, that it's not like you can manufacture these people overnight. And we did virtually overnight eliminate, or they opted out 5 million people. So it ain't coming back soon, no matter what you do in terms of a strike. I'm at a loss. I definitely empathize with especially the competent nurses and doctors that are out there who stuck it out through COVID, and fought burnout and probably continue to fight it every day. I don't know how to handle it, but it's a very, very difficult situation right now.
So right. And just adding a few other notes and observations, I would argue, I don't have the statistics right in front of me, but with the population dynamics, I would argue that demand, of course, is not going to go down anytime soon based on generational dynamics. And then the other thing that, the pandemic and general business environment has caused a lot of these rural systems to go under. And rural systems, and in some cases, like here in Atlanta, we've seen metro providers go under.
The largest trauma center in Georgia, correct, Scott?
I think you're right.
Finally, they let it go under. They've been keeping it afloat for decades now, but Grady Hospital just gone, just like that.
Um, and then one other thing that so all of this is, I know we don't typically talk about healthcare central topics, but we see this, at least I see this, as so connected to what I'll call the general welfare of the workforce in supply chain. I think it's something certainly we should be keeping on our radar. And folks, we got the link, of course, as always. We got the link. Y'all check it out and let us know your thoughts. And I'll tell you, if my mom is still with us, now my mom retired as a registered nurse and a certified diabetes educator. So, Greg, we'll get connected there. Any observations you have, Mom, I'd welcome them. We'll share those with our audience.
How many times does a mom hear that? Any observations that you have, I'd love to hear them.
Oh, that's so true.
You
Greg,
take advantage of that, Mom.
we miss. So some of y'all may have been with us last week as we enjoyed a couple of folks from BCG, Boston Consulting Group, on last week's Buzz, and Constantine sat in for Greg, who was on assignment. I think we called it, Greg.
Yes.
And there was a couple of those growth. We talked about some of the new e-commerce, not new, but a couple that were on the grow, right? That were competing with Amazon in different ways, including like longer delivery times, like catering to the crowd that don't care to get something the next day or something. They want to pay cheap and they can wait. Mm-hmm. Well, Greg, I completely missed that my daughter was a current customer for one of these sites. I want to say maybe, is it Shine? And Amanda, if you drop in the link.
There is a company called Shine. Yeah.
I might be getting my wires crossed, but it was right here. Shine, SHEIN. And I missed the opportunity, Greg, to interview my oldest daughter and get her experience with this Amazon competitor. So you never know what's right up under our nose, huh?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's always there. I may have done a little bit of shopping on various sites this weekend. I've gotten quite lazy. I can't lie. I went to a Costco this weekend, and it was, I mean, the amount of anxiety that I felt at that Costco was unbelievable. It was packed, chock full of people at 9:30 in the morning, which is when they open the doors. Nice. It was like the rush into a Taylor Swift concert.
And I think the whole world.
I just have to mention Taylor Swift every once in a while because Scott is so tired of hearing about her, especially on Football Sunday.
All right, Greg, you open that can of worms. Let me just say, I am my family is a big fan of Taylor Swift as an artist, and I am too. However, as we were talking pre-show, can't we just watch a football game and focus on the plays and not the relationships? Okay, thank you, Greg, and congrats.
I don't know the relationships with. I don't like hearing about Brittany Mahomes when we're watching the Chiefs either, right?
Well, I show up for a football game and it's like an edition of Entertainment Tonight breaks out. That's not what I'm after. But hey, different strokes, different folks. Let's get back to Greg. We got Big Show Bob Bova.
Yeah.
Here with us here today. Now going back to the AI, which we touted earlier, we talked about earlier. Big Show Bob Bova says, gentlemen, it's about value to the enterprise, to the stakeholders, who is willing to do what it takes to be the positive change agent. AI is sexy right now because it is a change agent. It cannot replace, though, the creativity of a valuable employee at any level with constructive strategic value and insight. Gregory.
I think the Hollywood writers, with the specific clause that excludes AI from writing for shows, would argue that point because they are about to be they could easily be put out of work by AI. And that nothing is more creative than writing, well, except for CBS shows, nothing's more creative than writing a television show or a movie, right?
Well, yeah, Greg, and adding to that, and Bob, great to have you here as always. Keep the good stuff coming. I think if you think of back to Hollywood, right? There's lots of examples in supply chain, but look at Hollywood. You look at word got out. This has been about a month or two ago that the Hollywood studios were looking to use AI, Gen AI, to create the extras in the scenes. Now, in my view, I'm never set foot in that industry. I'm respectful of all parties, but in my view, that's eliminating some of the just transactional stuff. And it seems like a natural application for Gen AI in that industry, much like in supply chain, we're talking about eliminating manual work. That for me, those are very closely related. But Greg, your thoughts?
Looks like the great John Henry versus the locomotive debate, right? I mean, people get really, really afraid when they realize that their low value, whatever job is at stake. And if they don't have the confidence to do something that's more high value, they're going to fight hard for that low value job. UAW is a great example of that. Not, I wouldn't say low value, but easily replaced now with automation and AI. And likewise, the Hollywood writers. So it doesn't make it true just because we say it. We know that AI can do creative, insightful, and strategic things, right? But there are still things that that humans can do, right? That AI can't. But we shouldn't kid ourselves, be blind to the fact that AI will, and in relatively short order, will do things that humans would do otherwise. We've already had AI in our business replace an entire human being, right? So,
good point.
I mean, if what we have to recognize is where we add value. To Bob's first point, right? It is about adding value, and if we don't add value by doing repetitive things with a wrench, machines should be doing it, and we should stop desperately clinging to these jobs that are of so little value for such a high cost.
So perfect opportunity. I wasn't sure. I'm glad you mentioned exactly that, because in my mind, so folks, if you're any baseball fans out there, especially maybe in a Gen Xer like me and Greg, you may remember the pitcher Tim Wakefield, right? Tim Wakefield unfortunately passed away yesterday at the age of 57. Now, but this is where it's relevant. Beyond, he's one heck of a player that also served his community tirelessly, endlessly, a great teammate, won 200 games in his career. But here's where it's relevant, because what Greg just touched on there, humans have to be, especially in this era, they've got to be open to embracing new skill sets, especially when it comes to survival. And here's where the Tim Wakefield story comes into play, because he was a home run hitting first baseman, right? That's what he got drafted to do, play first base, hit home runs. But a scout told him when he was in AA in farm system that, hey, I hate to tell you, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, I hate to tell you, but your bat and your glove ain't good enough to go any further. So Tim Wakefield took that critique to heart and said, you know what? I'm going to learn a new skill. I'm going to learn how to pitch. And better yet, I'm going to learn how to pitch the knuckleball. So he put away his bat, put away his glove, leaned in wholeheartedly into learning how to pitch. And less than 2 seasons later, he was starting in a National League Championship Series against Tom Glavine and the Braves. Beat Tom Glavine twice with complete games. And he went on, after a couple of setbacks like we all have, he went on to win 200 games and have his jersey retired for the Boston Red Sox, where he played the majority of his career. Now, I might be, these kinds of stories resonate with me because I watched him beat my team. I was really worried he was making an appearance in the Game 7 of 92 NLCS. But the relevant thing here for all of you listeners out there is we owe it to ourselves and our loved ones to embrace our inner Tim Wakefields and not be afraid to lean into something new. That's where we're going to find all sorts of opportunities to do big things in this digital economy, disrupted economy that we're living in. Greg, your thoughts, and then we're going to move forward.
Well, I know you're in the Air Force, but the Marine motto, improvise, adapt, overcome, right? I mean, that's what we do. That's what humans do. I mean, we shouldn't be alive. We don't have hair on our bodies, or at least not enough to keep us through cold weather, right? So we create clothes and we build structures, right? So if we had just stuck to our original job, we would have been extinct eons ago, or is it eras ago?
Epochs.
A long time ago, right? So yeah, we have to. I mean, I really empathize with people who want to believe some of these things. They're just simply not true, and I just would implore you not to dangerously delude yourselves to believe that AI can't do so many things. I mean,
well said.
I think it's important for us to embrace it. I think it's also important, by the way, for us to identify boundaries for it, right? But it can do many things that humans don't want to do, shouldn't do. Let's just pick automation. Forget about AI. Just automation, right? Or technology generally, whatever you want to call it, can do so many things that humans shouldn't do, dangerous, right? That are dirty, dark, and dull, right? But now it can also do those, I can't think of a D word for intelligent things we can do, but aren't the best suited for, because we're not consistent enough. We have emotion get in our way, all those sorts of things. All of those things that applied to straight logic technologies also apply to AI technologies, and they're just going to do it better than straight linear logic technologies do.
So if Greg implores you to do something, hey, do it. Lean in to the new opportunities out there, and don't rest on your laurels that you believe what you do cannot be replaced. That's not a good way to approach life. Let's share a couple things here. Back to baseball. T Squared, big fan. Hey, the Orioles are having one heck of a year. Looking forward to the playoffs. It's right around the corner. Hey, great to see you.
Be the O's and the Braves. I'm just saying. So right. You and T Squared had better get right with one another, because we're going to go head to head.
That'd be awesome. That'd be so awesome. Amit from Canada via LinkedIn. Great to have you here. Welcome, welcome. Gino, I think, is talking about leaning into new things. Here, truth, he says. I'm with you. Let's see here. Bob Bova says, I'm very interested to see what some long-term studies show about the efficacy of AI. Still really in its infancy. When does it become a rote technology without the ability to be humanly creative?
Wow. Great. AI's been around since 1952. It is in anything but its infancy, right? I mean, we have finally created the processing power to be able to use it to its full extent. And with generative AI, right, and with LoRa, these low-risk alternative learning techniques, it learns virtually like a human. It's moved well beyond rote items. You can't write a research paper using rote, right? Just rules and standards. You can't do that. So it's well past that now.
Keep it coming, folks. T Squared says delegate could be that D word. Kyle says driving could be that T word. And Gino finally says, before we move on, it's going to be real when AI and automation work together.
Oh boy, what a segue, Gino.
All right. All right. First off, join us this week as well. Greg and I welcome in Paul Bradley from Trace Gaines on October 5th, 12 noon Eastern time. I love these checklists. 5 steps to getting proactive, not reactive, proactive with digitization. I can never say that word. Digitization and supply chain data. All right. Because Greg, as we talked about, what was that? Someone stated that data and information is the latest oil. Remember that conversation we were having?
Yes. I don't remember who it was.
And one of the semiconductor technology CEOs. Hey, regardless, join us on the 5th. And then, Greg, to your point, let's get some economic news. I'm going to pretend for a second, Greg.
Oh, no. Oh, okay. Are you saving the FedEx one?
I'm saving that one.
Oh, Gino, I'm sorry. I jumped the gun on your segue. We'll post that again, and then it will look like perfect timing.
That's right. We're coming. Gino's coming. The 4th story on those topics. But right now, though, Greg, I'm going to act like I did not struggle with all things accounting or economic related in college. Goodness gracious. I'm glad you're good with math. 3rd story today. Let's share some economic news. According to Market Watch, the U.S. economy grew at a 2.1% pace in second quarter 2023. Consumer spending, though, came in a good bit weaker than expected. And, of course, that's one of the key factors, maybe the key factor behind the economy. But on the other hand, business investment, like money spent on plants and equipment, well, that was a little bit stronger than expected. Inventory levels, Greg, also showed an increase. Folks getting ready, peak. Current predictions for 3rd quarter is a 4% increase in the U.S. GDP. Man, that sounds ambitious. However, trouble may lie ahead, as indicated in perspective shared by Chris. I'm going to say Zaccarelli. Chris Zaccarelli, Chief Investment Officer at the Independent Advisor Alliance, said, quote, "We believe that a recession is inevitable, but we have been surprised by the resilience of the consumer," end quote. Gregory, put on that chief economist hat of yours. What's your take?
Okay, just to be clear, not an economist, but equally as accurate in predicting recessions and economic growth. Okay, which is almost 0% accurate. Look, how long have we been talking about recession? How long have I been talking about recession? And it hasn't come yet. And
Mm.
I mean, I wonder if people, and I would love to get some visceral responses to this. I wonder if people think that the economy growing at a 2.1% clip right now is, or four, if that's where we think it's going to grow for the whole year, if they think that's a good thing at this point,
Mm.
especially since it's mostly driven by increased prices, right? And I mean, there's some indicators in here that are encouraging because consumers have been driving inflation since whenever we started getting those 3-4 trillion dollars worth of checks,
Mm.
right? Spending other people's money. But I think we're about to run out of other people's money. So that's why we're starting to see consumer spending come down, but now business spending is going up. And that over the spending for the same period last year. It's important for us to align that. So we can't say that peak caused this because peak would have caused a similar uplift last year,
Yep.
right? What really has caused it is the continually increasing prices. 4.5, 5% inflation, right? The rule of 72 says let's divide 5 into 72, and that's how often prices will double,
Hmm.
right? So I can't do the math. Somebody do the math for me, please.
That'd be
Because
12,
I like
right?
challenged by accounting, but I understand economics as a whatever you want to call it, psychological, definitely not a science, psychological or um, even economic discipline. Even
Mm.
calling it a discipline is giving it a lot of credit, isn't it?
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, I think we're going to be challenged, and it's going to be hard to have a soft landing. But we also know that these things are politically motivated, and they're trying to protect the current administration, as they always do, right? Especially with an election coming up. Although you never know, they may just. I mean, there's some rumblings in the Democratic Party that we may just sacrifice our current president and try
Mm.
and find another candidate to run. And it looks like the Republicans will be epically weak
Mm.
in the upcoming election. So maybe they don't have to do that. Some of these things, when they work together, can be really, really beneficial to us, just common people,
Mm.
right? If it looks like the Republicans can't win, we don't have to protect the current, or we're going to sacrifice the current president and find a new one because we think he can't win. Then we don't have to do all these conflagrations. We can just focus on the economy independent of its political ramifications. More importantly, on the ramifications on us, you folks out there, and me. Um, so it's a very difficult time right now because there's so many um, conflicting influences, and it has become so clear and apparent that this is as political as it is economic, and so that makes it even harder to predict. But
Yes.
4.5, 5%, whatever you want to call it, inflation is not sustainable.
Mm.
Right? We have to get back down to that 2% range.
I'm with you. And to your point you made a second ago, this is an example. We've all had the meetings in supply chain and manufacturing organizations where everybody brings their own spreadsheet and the data, everybody's got their own data. This is an example, and we're going to point this out in a second because you see different agencies have showed different trends and different data. And we're going to point that out in just a second. Kyle says prolonging the inevitable and the lasting impact of inflation is going to last
That's
longer.
true. Well, that's true. I mean, if we don't hit recession, then these prices growing at 5% a year will stick, right?
Mm.
I mean, I use one indicator. I remember, many of you might not. I remember the Great Recession, when I could get a Zaxby's. Probably not everybody knows what Zaxby's sells chicken tenders. That's all they sell. Okay. fries and other sides, but it's a whole business built around chicken tenders, which has absolutely blown the doors off, by the way. But you used to be able to buy a big Zax snack for $3.99. Now it's $8.
Wow.
$8 or $8.49, depending on where you are. So that to me is
unsustainable.
Yeah. I mean, it's fast food.
Right.
Even McDonald's made their 1/10 of an ounce hamburger smaller than 1/10 of a pound.
Right.
1/10 of a pound. Physically smaller. And the way that you can tell is they didn't make the buns physically smaller, and now the burger doesn't go to the edge of the bun, so you know that they've made it smaller. It's tragic.
It is. All right. Let's see here. Andre says, what I want to know is whether manufacturing grew by 2.1%. Probably not. Manufacturing's been hit hard, a lot of contraction in the manufacturing industry this year. They've had a couple months, but probably not, Andre. Let's see here. And he also says, would it not be nice to have a president with some supply chain skills? That'd be cool. I think for no matter what party you're part of, that'd be really cool. Gino says, in our business, the backlog has been thin, but signs of optimism and project spends are beginning to appear. Oh, if they'll just materialize. Gino, hey, we're wishing.
What is Gino's business now?
Well, so I think, Gino, correct me if I'm wrong. I know you're in the machinery industry, right? But you also do a lot of great work training up folks in supply chain. So, Gino, feel free to elaborate if you would like. And Greg, hey, appreciate the feedback. Greg says, great topics as always. Hello from Milwaukee. Go Brewers. Hey, the Brewers are in. They got a great team. Yeah, they're in. Great team, too.
I remember way back to the days when they were Harvey's wall bangers. Remember that?
I do.
Just one banger after the other, man.
Paul Molitor and Robin Yount, right? I think. Yount. Sorry. But yeah, Brewers are good. All right. Let's see. We've been promising this last story, Greg. So we're going to dive
into Gino, now you're right.
Right. I want to share. This is a cool, I think this is a cool picture. And by the way, there's no sponsorship from Dexterity AI. I really like the photograph and the story. So our fourth story is reported by our friends at Supply Chain Dive. Given all the workforce issues, companies, of course, they're going to find a way, and they continue to experiment with ways to automate. Here, FedEx is collaborating with a robotics company named Dexterity AI. The focus is on using AI-powered robots to load FedEx ground trailers and load them more efficiently, might I add. The testing process continues and is ongoing, and no time frame was given as to deploying this particular solution. But one other interesting nugget, and y'all check out this read. I think we dropped a link in the chat, because as we were just talking about, right, the data showed more investment in business. Well, check out this nugget from this article. According to the Association for Advancing Automation, robot orders in North America was down in Q2 2022 for a second consecutive quarter after record-breaking purchases had been made in 2021 and 2022. So, Greg, and I'm sorry, I misspoke there. Robot orders in North America were down in Q2 2023. I got the year wrong. After record-breaking purchases in 2021 and 2022. There we go. All right, so Greg, your thoughts here.
Well, I mean, this is what Gene was talking about, right? Is think about how we're using AI. One of the points that they make in this article is about the dexterity of these robots, where they can put very slight touch pressure on it, like a human would, to get things to fit just perfectly into a small slot, so that they can build a flat wall of boxes as they work throughout the trailer. So this is a huge advance. It's a job no human could do. I mean, having worked for a retailer, having seen how trucks are loaded, it's impossible to think about all the things that could impact it. I think of this as kind of like Tetris in reverse. You're trying to put the blocks in the right way, right? Not take them out, or, it is Tetris, whatever. Anyway, sorry. I'm always confused with Tetris and Jenga and all of that stuff. But it is trying to make it, because when loading a trailer, as we all know, you want the stuff that needs to come off first on the trailer last, right? You have to load balance the trailer. So let's say the first or the very last delivery is a bunch of heavy stuff. You still have to work around that because you can't have all of the weight over the axles, all kinds of things like that. So AI can undertake all of these difficult challenges, these combinatorial analytics that humans simply can't do, and do it unemotionally and without mistake. So I also believe, by the way, to Bob Bova's point, I think linear algorithms couldn't do a lot of this as well, and have done a lot of this. But the AI aspect of it, of learning, analyzing like humans do, that's enough room for this box to fit into, right? And next time I'll know that. Although sometimes we as humans forget that, AI never forgets, right? So I think this is a good example of the use of this for a job that humans simply have done for a long time, but simply can't do effectively enough. And probably don't want to do, because I don't know if anybody's loaded trailers on a loading dock. Guess where the hottest part of any warehouse is? A trailer out in the sun on a loading dock, right? Or coldest, right? The worst weather is in a trailer that's being loaded. Let's just put it that way.
Excellent point there. I'm going to bring that picture back up. We had a great comment here from Greg Studer. In the robot picture, I can see that it can only load so high. Seems like some wasted space to the top. That's a great call out.
To wait.
Yes, I'm thinking this is really just a promo shot. This is probably not even the real experiment. That you can see the name on the robots and all, but I agree. We got to cube it out, Greg. No wasted space.
Cube it out or weigh it out, whichever is first, right?
Right.
You can see by the articulation of the arm that they can lift much higher than that.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Yeah. Articulation. What a great word there. Gino says, if you've ever loaded a truck like that by hand,
amen,
man. I can't say that, Greg. I have loaded planes in the Air Force, by the way, but which is a whole different thing than this. But I've
talk about critical weight distribution and aircraft, right?
Well, I wish I could claim to have the smarts to figure all that stuff out. They said, put it here and put it there. And I put it here and put it there.
But somebody figured it out, didn't they?
Someone did. Yeah. Load masters. Absolutely. Load masters are critical. And by the way, big shout out to Lloyd Knight, one of the coolest load masters I know. What was I going to say? Oh, I've never loaded a truck. So I'd love to get your thoughts there. Of course, it's hard work, but for some reason, Greg, what I have done way back as a kid is load hay in a barn. Now, of course, these are two different things, but folks, if you've never lifted a hay bale and never loaded and stacked up hay, man, I think I slept for 3 days straight, Greg, after that with my Uncle Bill.
Scott, we had a round top barn, and we stacked it all the way to the top. And you can only push a hay bale so far when there's only enough height for the hay bale to get through. So you have to get behind it. That's why barns are round topped, by the way. Okay. So you have to get behind it and pull it as far as you can. And then if you're usually the smallest, skinniest guy, winds up doing that. All the while, by the way, breathing in microscopic hay,
oh, yeah.
Right? It's just gross. And it's hot as Hades in there. And then you have to crawl out around. If it is not a job for somebody who does not like tight spaces, and then you kick the bale in against the last row. It is absolute, utter torture. And I don't know what I did to my great uncle that made him make me be that guy, other than be skinny. But I really thought he hated me. I thought he wanted me to die up there, because it felt like it, didn't it?
It's tough work.
In the barns.
Tough work. And look, we greatly respect all the folks out there loading trucks today, and there's been some outstanding leaders that have come up through the ranks where they started on part-time basis loading trucks. But to Greg's point, and I definitely want to double spike the football on this, I think inevitably you've got workforce dynamics, workforce preferences, and it's not necessarily opening up bigger and bigger pools to get that kind of work done. So this pilot and the initiative by FedEx is the future, no doubt, as we look to automate and make more efficient the blocking and tackling that goes on across global supply chain. We highly value, going back, of course, the human element. There's some outstanding things where humans do it best. But again, this frees up the human element to do more exciting, more valuable things. Okay.
And less painful,
Right.
dangerous, and yeah.
That's a great point. Going back to the healthcare thing, that doing jobs that are less likely to get you hurt, right? Gina points out the food processing plants, pork, chicken, beef. Talk about some dangerous situations. Slicing up, carving up, harvesting these animal products. Man, lots of people get hurt. And there's some automation that we've talked about, reported on here on the Buzz, that has made big gains in that industry. Okay, so Greg, we're gonna wrap.
Yep.
We were buzzing right along, and then we went down a bit of a rabbit hole. We blink, and it's almost 1 o'clock. But
you know what I like about this show?
What?
We can do that. I hope folks are entertained by that, or at least informed, right? Or they're laughing at us like, these idiots cannot stay on top. Whatever,
right.
whatever it is, I hope it's valuable to folks out there.
I do too, and I tell you, I really have enjoyed. We had a lot of comments here today, and I appreciate y'all. And some of y'all put your strong point of view in those comments. Y'all keep that coming. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay,
definitely.
So Greg, we covered a lot of ground. We've invited folks to check us out in live programming the rest of the week. In fact, the whole month of October is jam-packed, full. It's a cornucopia of supply chain leadership content. And thank you. And Kyle, great to have you here today. Love it, he says. Well, we appreciated what you brought to the table, and we hope that y'all keep it coming. All right, so Greg, what's one thing that folks got to keep in mind from today's discussion, and then we're gonna sign off and get going.
I think adaptation is the most valuable of all human traits. Don't deny. I mean, we haven't found the boundaries of what technology can do yet. Don't live in the past. Don't defend it for personal reasons or for lack of a forward-looking point of view. Accept that change will occur. It has always occurred, and those that adapt with it thrive, and those that don't get extincted. So, that's my thing, is just we talk a lot about the human traits that technology can't replace. The ability to adapt, as you talked about, the Tim Wakefield story is great. The ability to adapt at that level is a uniquely human skill. Use it.
That's right. That's such an excellent point. Way to finish. Machines don't say, hey, you know what? That scout says I can't hit baseballs at the major league level. So machines don't say I'm going to pick up a knuckleball. That is a uniquely human, to your point, uniquely human advantage. Folks, there's a great business analogy there. Look for the opportunities. When one door shuts, there's all sorts of other opportunities. And especially in this technological environment, if you're open to it and you lean into the change and disruption, there's lots and lots of opportunities to where, whatever the business version of getting your jersey. What do you think that would be, Greg? What's the business equivalent of getting your jersey retired by the Red Sox? I don't know.
I don't think there is an equivalent. I mean, right? I mean, even arguably the best leader of IBM got to write a book, and even then, people didn't really appreciate what he did. So I don't think there is an equivalent. But just don't worry about your jersey getting hung up. Just worry about you getting hung out to dry.
Oh, man. Okay. That's good. We're going to have to leave it there, folks. And, of course, rest in peace to Tim Wakefield. I will forever remember, starting with the 92 NLCS between the Braves and the Pittsburgh Pirates. We tracked him throughout 200 wins in that career. That is remarkable. Folks, hopefully you enjoyed today's session. Big thanks to Amanda and Catherine behind the scenes helping to make it happen. Big thanks to all of y'all that tuned out and brought not only a turkey sandwich, but brought your point of view and perspective. Love that. Greg, always a pleasure knocking out these shows with you.
Likewise. Yeah, thank you.
You bet. Folks, what's that, Greg?
I enjoyed it. And thanks to all you out there. Keep those comments coming.
Keep them rolling in. And
we may not agree, but we're always pointing the same direction.
Well said. Well said. All right, folks. Hopefully you enjoyed today's show. Hopefully you're going to take a nugget of something that was discussed here today and put it into action. That's the name of the game. Deeds, not words. Lean into those new opportunities. And with all that said, Scott, on behalf of our entire team here at Supply Chain Now, Scott Luton challenging you, do good, give forward, and be the change. And we'll see you next time right back here at Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.